I'm not entirely sure why I decided to return to the old cabin in the woods. Maybe it was nostalgia, or perhaps an irrational longing to face my fears. It had been years since I last stepped foot in that place. Not since my family spent one final summer there before everything fell apart. I decided to spend the night there. A ridiculous idea, I know, but I wanted to prove to myself that the fears of my childhood were unfounded. I set up my sleeping bag near the fireplace and decided to explore a bit before darkness fell. While rummaging through the drawers of an old dresser, I found something I didn't remember seeing before, a worn leather notebook with my name inscribed on the cover. I opened it with a mix of curiosity and unease, and my heart froze as I read the first few pages. The handwriting was mine, yet I had no memory of writing those words. They described strange dreams, dark figures lurking among the trees, and a constant whisper that called my name. As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, the cabin was enveloped in an eerie silence. I turned on my flashlight to read more of the notebook, but something in the air made me stop. A sound, a creak from the floor above. My rational mind tried to dismiss it as old wood, the wind, or maybe an animal. But then I heard it again, this time accompanied by something far more unsettling: footsteps. Driven by a mixture of fear and curiosity, I climbed the stairs. The flashlight illuminated the dusty hallway, and every step I took echoed ominously. At the end of the hall, the door to the master bedroom was slightly ajar. I pushed it open cautiously, and my eyes locked onto something that chilled me to the bone. A figure stood by the window. It was tall and thin, with unnaturally long limbs. Its face was shrouded in impenetrable darkness, but I could feel its gaze piercing through me. My body froze, paralyzed, as a whisper filled the room. "I knew you'd return," it said in a voice that was a distorted echo of my own. I stumbled backward, tripping over something. I fell to the floor, and my flashlight rolled away, plunging the room into complete darkness. The sound of footsteps drew closer, slow and deliberate, until I could feel its presence looming over me. The last thing I remember was an unnatural cold consuming my body and laughter echoing from everywhere at once. When I woke, I was outside the cabin, the notebook lying open on my chest. A new page had been written, but this time it wasn't my handwriting. "Thank you for visiting. I'll be waiting." I've never run faster in my life. I left the cabin behind, vowing never to return. But sometimes, at night, I can still feel those eyes watching me, and the echo of that laughter haunts my dreams. I know it's not over. I know I'll have to go back one day. In the days that followed, I noticed the notebook never disappeared. No matter how many times I tried to get rid of it, burning it, throwing it into the river, burying it always reappeared, pristine, at the foot of my bed. Each time it returned, a new page had been written, describing events that had yet to happen. One night, I woke with a start. The notebook was open on my chest, and the latest page displayed a crude, trembling drawing. It was my bedroom, with the window wide open and a tall, shadowy figure standing in the frame. I felt a chill, and when I looked up, there it was. The same figure, watching me from the window. It didn't move, but its presence was suffocating. The laughter returned, louder and more piercing than before. This time, it wasn't a dream, and I knew I couldn't run. The last sentence written in the notebook burned into my mind. "This time, I won't let you go." I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My legs were frozen, as if held by an invisible force. The figure stepped into my room, its movements deliberate and slow. The air grew thick and oppressive, and my vision began to blur. When I woke again, I wasn't in my bed. I was in the forest, under a starless sky. The notebook lay open in front of me, and with trembling hands, I read the newest page, "Welcome home." Everything around me was silent, broken only by the faint sound of something moving among the trees. I knew I wasn't alone. The figure was there, watching, waiting. I was no longer just a visitor. This forest had become my prison. The notebook, my only companion, continued to write on its own. A new phrase appeared as I held it. "The game has only begun." Days, or perhaps centuries, passed. Time had lost all meaning in this eternal twilight. The figure always lingered at the edge of my vision, never speaking, but its presence was a constant weight on my soul. The notebook kept writing, describing my actions before I even made them. "You will rise and walk to the fallen tree," one page read, and like a puppet, my body obeyed. I fought to regain control, but it was futile. I was trapped in a cycle where every action was predetermined by those cursed pages. One night, the notebook's tone changed. The words grew chaotic, the writing erratic. "Run," one page commanded. "Hide," screamed another. But there was nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. Something else was approaching, something far worse than the figure. Finally, the notebook wrote a sentence that froze my blood. "Choose you or them." At first, I didn't understand. Then I heard voices in human, yet disturbingly familiar, calling my name from the trees. They began as whispers, but soon turned into screams that tore through the air. The figure appeared again, closer this time, extending a hand toward me. In its palm was a black key, darker than the night. I realized the choice was mine. Take the key and face the unknown, or stay and be consumed by the forest forever. With trembling hands, I took the key. The notebook fell to the ground, and its pages spontaneously ignited, casting an unnatural glow over the forest. The figure didn't move, but its laughter rang out one final time as I inserted the key into the hollow of a tree that had appeared before me. A portal opened, pure darkness swirling inside. Without a second thought, I stepped through, letting it swallow me whole. The last thing I heard was the sound of the notebook snapping shut on its own. Now I write these words from a place I cannot describe. There is no light or shadow here, only an endless void. But I am not alone. Something stirs in the darkness, waiting. Perhaps I made the wrong choice, or perhaps there was never a right one. And as I write, I can feel the notebook returning. This time, there is no escape. The void surrounded me completely. I had no sense of time or space. There was only me and the notebook, now reduced to a simple object in my hands. Its pages were blank, as if waiting to be filled with new horrors. As what felt like days or centuries passed, a strange sensation began to creep over me, a feeling of familiarity. It was odd, as if I had been in this place before. Then it struck me. The notebook, the first pages, the ones that described my childhood at the cavern, weren't they too detailed to be mere dreams? What if the notebook didn't just predict the future, but also altered the past? I began rereading the first pages, searching for hidden clues. That's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A mark in the lower corner of each page. A peculiar symbol I didn't initially recognize. It was a spiral, but not just any spiral. It was a perfect vortex, as if it were drawing everything into its center. Intrigued, I started researching symbols like it. I spent hours immersed in ancient texts and manuscripts, searching for any reference to the spiral. Finally, I stumbled upon an alchemical tome that described an identical symbol. According to the text, this spiral represented infinity, the beginning and end of all things. It was also said to be a mark of great power, capable of connecting mortals to forces beyond their comprehension. The revelation left me stunned. Could the notebook be an alchemical artifact? And the figure, was it a being created through this alchemy, a guardian of some ancient secret? I decided it was time to act. I couldn't remain passive while the notebook continued to dictate my fate. I had to find a way to break its hold and free myself from its influence. I returned to the portal's entrance, the same place where I had first stepped through. The spiral on the notebook glowed faintly, as if resonating with something beyond. Taking a deep breath, I made my decision. I stepped forward and passed through the portal. I found myself back in the forest, but something had changed. The atmosphere was lighter, and the trees seemed more alive. The figure was nowhere in sight, though its presence lingered faintly in the air. I wandered aimlessly for hours, searching for any sign of the figure or the notebook's origin. Then I discovered a small cabin hidden among the trees. Its door was slightly ajar, and when I entered, I saw a room filled with ancient books and scrolls. At the center of the room was a work table, and on it lay a notebook identical to mine. My heart raced as I approached the table. When I opened the notebook, I saw that its first pages were exactly like mine, but as I read further, I realized it didn't just recount my story, it also told the stories of others. There were accounts of people who, like me, had been chosen to fulfill a mission. On the final page of the notebook, I found a letter addressed to me. It explained that the notebook was an object of immense power, capable of creating and destroying realities. The figure, far from being an enemy, was my guide, my protector. Its purpose was to prepare me for a destiny far greater than anything I could have imagined. As I finished reading the letter, I understood that my life had been orchestrated from the very beginning. But instead of feeling betrayed, I felt an odd sense of liberation. I was no longer a victim, but the protagonist of my own story. With the notebook in hand, I stepped out of the cabin and faced the figure. This time, I felt no fear, only respect and gratitude. Together, we ventured deeper into the forest, ready to confront whatever destiny awaited us. The figure regarded me with a mix of sadness and understanding. It knew that the time had come for me to fulfill my destiny. During our journey, I had uncovered the truth. I was the one who had unleashed the darkness that now threatened the universe. In an act of arrogance and desperation, I had manipulated the notebook's powers for a selfish end. Now, I had to pay the price. Taking the notebook in my hands, I began to write. Each word was like a dagger to my heart, but I knew it was necessary. I described in detail how I had caused the cosmic imbalance, how I had betrayed the trust of the figure and all those who had helped me. As I finished writing, the notebook began to emit an even brighter light than before. The figure approached me and took my hand. "You are not alone in this," it said. "Together we can fix what we've done." I nodded, knowing it was right. We made our way to the heart of the darkness, a place of chaos and destruction. When we arrived, we were confronted by a sinister entity, the source of all the evil. The battle was fierce, but in the end, the figure and I triumphed. Yet the damage had already been done. The universe was gravely wounded and needed time to heal. The figure looked at me and said, "Only you can restore the balance." I knew what it meant. I had to sacrifice myself. With tears in my eyes, I bid the figure farewell. I thanked it for everything it had done for me. and asked it to watch over the universe. Then, I approached the heart of the darkness, which still pulsed faintly. I knew that if I absorbed it into myself, I could restore the balance, but it would cost me my life. Closing my eyes, I focused on the light emanating from the notebook. With one final breath, I let the darkness consume me. The pain was excruciating, as if my soul were being torn to shreds. And then, there was nothing. I awoke in a place of infinite peace. Around me were stars I had never seen before. The figure stood beside me, smiling. "Welcome home," it said. I didn't understand where I was or what had happened, but I felt no fear. I knew I had finally found my place in the universe.